Hi guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Ivana, and today I'm going to be talking about how to deal with depression from a Christian standpoint. In my last video, I talked about how to deal with depression and how to be happy. And in one of the points I made, I said that one of the ways I deal with it is through my religion. And I got a message from a girl asking me, well, if you're a Christian, why would you be depressed? Because if you're a Christian, doesn't that mean that God protects you from all the bad things in the world? And so I started thinking about that. Well, actually, no. We're all humans and we're gonna go through every single type of emotion in our lives. It doesn't matter if you're a Christian or not, especially if you're a Christian. You're gonna go through trials and you're gonna go through hardships, and that's just part of life, and you're human, and it just goes like that. So if you read the Bible, you're gonna see a bunch of characters who throughout their lives have gone through trials and who have gone through hardships, and they've gotten through it because of their faith in God. So I don't think it's a crazy thing to be depressed if you're a Christian. I think it's totally valid. The thing is how you deal with that depression as a Christian. So for me personally, I'm going to tell you guys my personal experience with depression. So this is basically going to be my testimony, which I never thought I would share on the internet, let alone have it be my second video on YouTube and have it be such a vulnerable topic. But here we go, I guess. So, I'm sorry if I'm awkward, I'm getting used to this. So, bear with me. I want this to be raw, I want this to be just casual, because it's a sensitive and vulnerable topic for me. So, let's just get started. Okay, so I grew up in a Christian household. My mom grew up being Baptist, and my father was a Mormon, but he wasn't an active Mormon, but my whole dad's side of the family was. And so from an early age, I was introduced to religion. And so my grandma from my dad's side would take me to Mormon church, and my family from my mom's side would take me to Christian church. And I'm not saying that Mormons aren't Christian, it's just easier for me to distinguish it. And so I was introduced to religion from an early age. So I knew about Jesus, I knew about everything, pretty much. But I didn't when I would hear in Sunday school, we love Jesus so much. I said, yeah, I love Jesus, but I didn't really feel it. I didn't feel what it was like to love Jesus like I loved my mom and dad, or I loved my grandma or my sisters, And that pretty much all changed when I was 11. So, a little bit of backstory. I was born in Argentina, and I moved to Utah in the United States when I was 2 years old. So I grew up in Utah up until I was 11. And when I was 11, I moved back to Argentina. And that was so hard for me. It was really hard for me because the transition from going to one country to the other was super hard for me, because if you guys don't know, Argentina is a beautiful country, don't get me wrong, but it's also a third world country, so it's not as luxurious as the United States. So the schooling and the children and stuff, it's not the same. Also, I was raised in Utah, which everybody there is Mormon mostly. So there's not a lot of swearing, there's not a lot of it's kind of like a bubble, There's lots of religious kids, so it's kind of super chill. So I moved to Argentina, and first things first, it's a cultural shock, obviously. And I had a very hard time with the language. My parents had spoken. My parents spoke to me in Spanish my whole life, so I understood Spanish. But it's not the same thing when you get to a place and they all speak it so fast. Like, I don't know if you guys have ever taken like Spanish and you understand what your teacher's saying, and then you go to like Spain or something, or Mexico, and they're just like talking so loud, it's like, what? What? Nah. It doesn't make sense. So I didn't understand anything anybody would talk to me about. And I had a problem at school where, well, my teacher had no patience with me, and she thought I was like, I don't know, she thought I was like acting dumb, but I literally did not understand what she would say to me. She would like basically call me out in the middle of the class and say like, oh, you're literally stupid, or she literally called me stupid. I had to switch schools because I felt so bad in that class. Because like she would call me dumb in front of all my classmates, and I just felt so bad because like back in Utah I was like one of the brightest, not one of the brightest, but like I did really well in school considering that, like I was in elementary school. Like I did good in school. I never had a problem. And then for a teacher to call me stupid in front of classmates that I had no idea like the slang, anything, I didn't understand. So I just had like a really, really rough time in general. I also kind of had like a little stalker. One of my classmates stalked me. It was a whole thing. It wasn't like fun for me. So I just had a really bad time transitioning. And so since I was having such a hard time transitioning, I had like a mental breakdown, literally. I had to go to a psychologist, and she gave me like a leave of absence from school until I could find a different school that would be a better fit for me, because I literally had panic attacks. I did not want to go to the school. And in that time, since I didn't know anybody else, I started going to my aunt's church because my aunt and my uncle are pastors. So I started going to their church, and that was like the thing I looked forward to every single day. Like if it was Monday, I was like, how many days till Sunday? How many days till Sunday? And that was like the thing I looked forward to, because when I was in church, I felt accepted. I felt like everything was okay. I just had this feeling of just like freedom, you know? I was free, like I belonged there, like nothing bad could happen to me there, like I was safe. And so one day, there was this guest pastor there, and they were singing a song, and I don't know how to explain it, but I just like felt the presence of God in my heart, and it just overfilled my heart with such love and such joy that I just started bawling. And I was little, so I didn't understand why I was crying, and I was like praying, God, don't let me cry in front of all these people. But like that's when I understood what loving God was. And that's when I understood what it meant to love Jesus. You know, like how I said before, when people would say, I love Jesus, and I'd be like, yeah, I love Jesus. But like, that's when I knew I loved Jesus, because I felt him love me. And so like that's the first instance where like that's how I came to God. And after that, I got baptized because I chose to. And later on in life, I switched schools. I started going to a different school. I felt better. I kept going to church. But then through my teenage years, I started getting depressed. And my depression was very hard on me, because now I know, now that I'm 21, I know I don't look 21, but I'm 21. Now that I go to therapy and I have a diagnosis, I have dysthymia. So that means I have like general depression, and it just lasted a long time, and I can just be sad for a very, very long time for no reason. Back then I didn't know that, but when I was 15, I got really bad depression. I had almost an eating disorder. I just hated myself. I hated everything. I started going to a private high school, and at the time my parents had lended some money from like their savings account to one of their best friends, and she never gave it back, and it was like most of their savings. So we ended up having to move with my grandparents, and they had the tiniest house you can imagine. Compared to what we had in Utah, I just felt like I lived in a shoebox. I felt like, I don't know if you guys have ever watched Gossip Girl, but you know how like Jenny pretended like she wasn't something else, like she was rich but she actually wasn't. In high school, we kind of did that with my sister because she was kind of ashamed of where we lived, and she made me follow her lead. And so all my friends would have like these big, enormous, luxurious houses that were beautiful, and then I would have to go home and see this small little house where I lived with how many people? 6, 7 people. And it was torture for me. Like, I hated it. I felt like I was being punished, and that like led me to some of the depression. Like, I couldn't have friends over. All of my friends lived far away. We had to trade in our car for like a very old dingy car, and it's all materialistic things, and looking back at it, it's stupid problems, and I shouldn't have even been worried about that. But in the moment, it was just like the most depressing thing for me ever. And I was so depressed because my friends would go on extravagant vacations and I wouldn't, and just a bunch of things like that. And that was just like a depressing point in my life. And so the thing that got me out of it was like my religion, and just holding on and thinking that, well, if Jesus is making me go through this, there will be a lesson for it in the future. And there was. Hold on, just you wait. And so I got out of that depression. I found a way out. I don't know. I prayed about it. I listened to worship music. I got back on my feet. And then a few years later, I became depressed again. Shocker. It was mostly the same things. And then this time there was a boy involved. So of course it was so much more melodramatic. And again, I was super depressed, and I just started getting suicidal thoughts, and it was just awful. And I just felt like nothing in the world could help me. Like, there was no point of living, there was no point to life. I was just this poor girl trapped in this like rich school. I was meaningless. There's like nothing. It was just like annoying to like now listen to myself say that. It was just annoying. But I felt awful. So again, I surrendered myself to God, and I said, Jesus, I give this depression to you. I don't know what the purpose of this is, but I give it to you, and I ask you to take it from me. And so he did, and I felt better. And then my grandpa got really, really sick. My grandpa was 96 years old. He got colon cancer, and he had intestinal bleeding. So he was losing blood every single day. And there was nothing we could do about it, because since he was so old, he couldn't go under, because the anesthesia would just like not, he wouldn't come back from that. And he was too weak to get like an endoscopy to like fix the bleeding. The cancer spread everywhere. He was too weak to get studies done. And so eventually he passed. And I thought, well, if I was so depressed because of the stupid, meaningless things, materialistic things brought me so down, imagine losing the person I looked up to the most in my whole entire life since I was little, because I lived with my grandpa. He lived with us in Utah, and we lived with him in the little shoebox that I was so ungrateful for. And then he passed away, and I would never see him again. And then I realized that maybe the purpose of having to have lived in that shoebox that I was so ungrateful for and I had depression for was actually a blessing, because I had 7 years living with one of the most influential people in my life, who I got to see every day and I learned so much from. And if I had gotten my way, and if God answered the prayers to give me one of those luxurious homes like everybody else had, I wouldn't have seen my grandpa every day. I wouldn't have learned as much as I did from him. And I wouldn't have had so many memories. Just like one of my favorite memories is just sitting there having breakfast with him and him telling me stories about when he was a kid. And I know so much about him that I wouldn't have if I didn't live with him, you know? And then that's when you see the purpose of the trial you go through, you know? So even though I was so upset about having to live in that house and not getting my way, there was a purpose for it, you know? And I'm so grateful now that I did go through that. Even though I was depressed, it was worth it because I was able to spend so much time with someone who meant the world to me. And I thought, wow, if I was so upset over materialistic things, my grandpa's death is gonna destroy me. But when he passed, I just felt, without even asking, I'm sorry, I don't like crying in front of people. I just felt, without asking, God's overwhelming love come over me and just touch my heart so much that I didn't feel alone. Felt so much love and support from God that I just knew in that moment that nothing I will ever go through will be able to bring me down, you know? Because I have God, and that's how I cope with depression. That's how I know depression can be beaten. That's how I, like going back to the initial video, that's how I know everything's gonna turn out okay. I feel like I rambled in this video. I don't know if I got my point across. Anyways, now I would like to share a Bible verse with you guys. 2 Corinthians 4:6-10. For God, who said, "Let light shine out of darkness," made his light shine in our hearts to give us the light of the knowledge of God's glory displayed in the face of Christ. But we have this treasure in jars of clay to show that this all-surpassing power is from God and not from us. We are hard-pressed on every side, but not crushed, perplexed, but not in despair, persecuted, but not abandoned, struck down, but not destroyed. We always carry around in our body the death of Jesus, so that the life of Jesus may also be revealed in our body. What I want to emphasize is this. We are hard-pressed on every side, but not crushed, perplexed, but not in despair, persecuted, but not abandoned, struck down, but not destroyed. That means no matter what you go through in life, no matter how hard it is, no matter how bad you feel, if you have Jesus Christ, he's not going to let it get to you. He's not going to let you fall. Okay? You're going to go through things. Everybody does. But if you hold on to Jesus Christ and you hold on to your faith, he's not going to let it break you. I don't know how this video is going to turn out, but if you got this far, thank you so much for watching. Leave your testimonies down in the comments so I don't feel like I'm vulnerable all by myself. And hopefully next week I'll make a more lighthearted video. Please like this video and share it with anybody you think could use it. I'll see you guys later. Bye.